The Lumix S9 might just be one of the best cameras for content creators right now, or at least that's what Panasonic wants you to think. It's small, full frame, and it is packed with features that sound perfect for creators who want something portable and doesn't compromise on quality. But with cameras like the Sony ZV-E1 and Canon R8 already out, is this really the best option? Or is it just hype? Let me break it down. Straight away, the size of the S9 is probably one of the biggest selling points. It's tiny for a full frame camera, smaller than the Lumix S5 or even about the same size as the Sony ZV-E10, which is an APS-C camera that is impressive. It's definitely portable and for content creators who are always on the move. This makes sense, but something about the design feels, off. Or lack thereof. The lack of a camera grip on the side does make it awkward to hold, for me personally. You're basically holding the lens half the time, which isn't ideal, especially if you're shooting for longer periods. I know this camera is aimed for content creators and not professionals, but for a camera this size, a grip would have made a huge difference. Another thing missing is the viewfinder. Now personally, I didn't really use the viewfinder on my S5 or S5 II, so it isn't really a deal breaker for me, especially since the camera is made more for video. But if you do plan to use this camera for photography, this might have to be something that you do need to consider. There are two other things to mention. The first being there is only one SD card slot. For me, that is kind of an issue because I do like to have that security and that you know that your footage is backed up onto a different SD card. But if you just have a good SD card, then you don't really have to worry about that, but that is always a worry that your footage might end up being corrupted and you can possibly lose it. There is no headphone jack, so you can't listen to your audio, but again, I don't really think people really care about that feature, so it doesn't really matter too much. Where the Lumix S9 really shines is in the video performance, and this is why I think Panasonic has aimed the camera straight at content creators. The biggest feature that everyone has talked about is the 6K open gate recording. Basically, the camera uses a full sensor and a 3:2 aspect ratio, so you're not locked into shooting horizontal or vertical. You can crop the footage however you want afterwards in post, whether that's for Instagram, TikTok, or even YouTube. For creators who post on multiple platforms like me, that is a really good feature. Quality-wise, the footage looks great. It's the same 24 megapixel sensor from the Lumix S5 II, which means sharp images, decent dynamic range, and great color science. It also shoots in Vlog, which is my favorite. This gives you more flexibility when you need to color grade. Though if you're not into color grading your own footage, then you're going to find the LUT support that comes with the Lumix S9 very useful. Which brings me to my next point. This is probably one of my favorite features on the Lumix S9. The ability to apply LUT straight onto the camera. Panasonic made a whole new app for the Lumix S9 called Lumix Lab where you can load your own LUTs. And you can transfer them over to your camera and allow you to shoot footage that is already color graded, meaning you do not have to do any post-production work. If you're a content creator trying to save time, this is perfect. You can literally download someone else's LUT, transfer it to your camera and have your footage looking cinematic straight away. The downside about the app is not a lot of people know about it, so when you do look for LUTs, even though there is some fantastic ones on there like the Daydream one that I have downloaded, not many people know about the app. However, recently Panasonic did also do an update where you can use the Lumix S5 II with the Lumix Lab app, which recently you were not able to, but thankfully you can, and I only found out about this yesterday. One of the biggest improvements with this camera is the autofocus. Panasonic recently switched to phase detection autofocus with the S5 II, and thankfully they've carried this over to the Lumix S9 as well. It's definitely better than their older contrast-based systems, but it's still not Sony level. However, every time Panasonic does release a new update on their cameras, the autofocus gets better and better every single time, which is something I have noticed recently. For most creators, it's going to do the job perfectly fine. The camera can track faces quite well, and in bright conditions, it's very snappy. If you are shooting on low light or fast moving objects, it can lose focus every now and then, which, it happens with every camera, but again, it's still a very reliable autofocus. The stabilization, on the other hand, is fantastic. Panasonic's IBIS has always been one of the best in the game, and the S9 holds up with that as well. You can shoot handheld footage and easily get away with it and not need a gimbal. Even though this camera is clearly aimed at video shooters, it's a 24 megapixel full frame camera, so the photo quality is solid. The images are sharp, colors look great straight off camera, and low light performance holds up well depending on what lens you use. The only downside with the Lumix S9 is there is no mechanical shutter. Everything is electronic, which is fine for most people, but if you are shooting fast moving objects like cars or F1, whatever you're into, there might be some rolling shutter effects. Now let's get into what I actually love about this camera and, what I hate about it as well. The size of the camera is probably one of my favorite things. Compared to the S5, I love it so much. You can literally just put it in your bag or even your pocket and just not even think about it twice. Whereas something like the Lumix S5 II, it just takes up so much space, and depending on what lens you use it with, it's just so heavy. The 6K open gate is probably one of my favorite features on this camera. For such a tiny camera to be able to shoot 6K is a massive deal. The built-in LUT support is probably one of the best features for content creators. I honestly didn't think it was going to be useful when I was watching other people's reviews, but then I started using it in person, and oh my god, it is one of my favorite features. The fact that you can just go on your phone, look at a LUT and download it and insert it straight into the camera, oh my god, it is such a good feature. Now, the things that I hate, and that is definitely going to be the grip. This is number one on the list. I really don't know why Panasonic didn't put a grip on this camera. It is just so awkward trying to hold it, because I just don't know how to describe it. The other thing is only one SD card slot. Again, this camera's aimed for content creators, so it's not a big deal, but you do need to consider that your footage might end up being corrupted. The one thing I do kind of dislike about this camera is the price. It starts off like around 1500, and for that price, you can literally get an S5 II, which is a professional camera and offers even more professional features. And I'm pretty sure if you get it used as well, you can get it for around 1300. So, you know, like, the pricing is not good. So of course you're gonna have to wait for it to be out longer in the market to get cheaper prices, because it is still a brand new camera. However, if you do look at the Panasonic website, you can get it for roughly around 1200 right now, which is still, honestly, it's a perfect price for the camera. Me personally, I'd place this around 800, but yeah, I guess that's a bit too cheap. But again, the features you get with this camera is out of this world. I'm a huge Panasonic fan, so of course I'm going to be a bit biased, but I would still recommend buying this camera, even though it's somewhat expensive for a beginner camera. When it comes to who I think this camera is aimed for, I think it's aimed for hybrid creators. So this means people who want to shoot a bit of everything, but don't want to carry a heavy camera like me, such as the Lumix S5. If you're a content creator who posts on multiple platforms and wants a full frame sensor and a tiny package, this camera is literally meant for you. But if you're a professional filmmaker or photographer like me who needs a viewfinder, 2 SD card slots, or actually no, get the autofocus out here, because the autofocus again is improving by the update, literally by the update. So you don't even need to worry about the autofocus. But if you need a viewfinder and 2 SD card slots, can you overlook it? Honestly, I can. I still think this camera is well worth it. For content creators, I honestly think this is the best camera you can get. It's small, it's powerful, and it has many features that a lot of content creators would greatly appreciate. Again, just keep in mind that it's not a perfect camera, but every time there is a new update, it will get better and better. But again, keep in mind, no viewfinder, the autofocus is okay, but again, it's getting better and better. So you do have to weigh these things, and the price. Just don't forget about the price. If you can afford it, get it straight away, because it's honestly very worth it. But one thing I do have a complaint about is the Lumix lenses are just so expensive for what they are. So what I do suggest is maybe get a third-party lens. There are 2 features that I forgot to talk about, and I'm going to include them now. The first one is there is no hot shoot, it is a cold shoot. Again, so that means you cannot use a flash. However, most creators are not going to have the need to use a flash, so if you're a professional, you know, who cares? And the last one is that I find this very, very, very useful, and it's quite a cool feature, is hybrid zoom. I've only just found this feature out, and basically imagine you have a 20-60 kit lens just like me on the camera. What you can do is turn that 20-60 into a 20-80, so it just gives you that extra bit of zoom. And now I haven't done that much research into it, so I don't know if it's like a digital zoom, whatever it is, you know, just like where it crops in or actually does like a different type of zoom. However, the few times that I have tested it, honestly, I don't really notice a loss in quality, so have a go, see what you think about it. But those are the 2 features that I forgot to include at the very beginning. Let me know down in the comments if this video did help you out. This is my first time ever doing a YouTube video like this, so I did kind of struggle recording this, but I do hope that I covered all the main talking points about the Lumix S9. This camera, I did borrow it from Panasonic, so it's not my own personal one, but in the few days that I have been using it, I have enjoyed using it so much. And when I do have the money to purchase my own one, I definitely will. It's just a shame that I do have to prioritize other things at the moment. Thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.